Good afternoon. Excellency, honored delegates, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon to those of you who are here in person, and good morning, afternoon, or evening for you that are joining us online. The event also serves us to launch the project newest online tool, the Compass. But before we really turn here to hear about the Compass, as well as from our distinguished panelists, I should note that in the outset of the event that it is live streamed and recorded, and we will distribute the recorded event video later on. We are also a very busy schedule with demonstration of the Compass, our distinguished speakers, as well as Q&A. So with that, before we move to our panel, I'm delighted to give the floor to UNIDIR Director Dr. Geiss to provide some welcome remarks, followed by Ambassador Stephan Klement, the EU Special Envoy for Non-Proliferation and Disarmament. Then we will follow with our distinguished panelist, Mr. Almuntaser Albalawi, a researcher with the Middle East Weapon of Mass Destruction Free Zone project at UNIDIR, Mr. Mohamed Gamal Ahmed Elghitany, Counsellor with the Permanent Mission of Egypt in Geneva. And we will conclude with Ambassador Adam Scheinman, the Special Representative of the US President for Nuclear Non-Proliferation. And we will conclude, as mentioned, with a session on Q&A. So for our online audience, I just want to mention, if you do have questions, please submit them through the Q&A section by clicking on the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. So with that, without further ado, Dr. Geiss, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, Excellencies, distinguished delegates. It's my pleasure to welcome you all to the launch of UNIDIR's latest addition to our growing series of online tools, the Middle East WMD-Free Zone Compass, mapping official statements. As many of you will know, UNIDIR initiated the Middle East WMD-Free Zone project back in 2019. It is now in its second phase, and it did so with the support of the European Union. To say that the Middle East has changed and still undergoes significant transformations would be an understatement, a gross understatement. The project therefore aims to account for both the traditional concerns related to regional WMD possession, use, and development, but also those concerns that currently emerge due to changes in the regional security environment and advancements in science and technology. It is, of course, important to acknowledge the challenging times and the ongoing suffering in the region. We at UNIDIR understand and acknowledge the severity of the situation, and we still hope that this project can contribute, even in modest ways, to building bridges and fostering a safer and more peaceful Middle East. The Compass is one of the project's latest products, and it aims to do exactly that. It is based, first of all, on an identified gap the project recognized in its initial phase, the absence of any record keeping for past regional arms control processes, such as the arms control and regional security in the Middle East process in the 1990s, or the Geneva consultations that took place afterwards. This gap created not only contradictory accounts about what happened in the room, which furthered frustrations and sometimes mistrust, but also prevented future negotiators from building up on existing ideas, initiatives, and positions. The Compass is therefore hopefully a helpful tool for diplomats, for decision makers, for experts and researchers, as it provides a unique opportunity to understand not only the various components of the future zone, but also what each of the regional states thinks about these issues. The Compass provides an in-depth view of the evolution of statements over the years on more than 55 topics and subtopics related to the future zone treaty elements, and it also provides a comparison across various states on these topics. The Compass also covers statements from the last decade, of course, including from the ongoing annual sessions of the Middle East WMD-Free Zone Conference in New York. So it is a unique opportunity to learn about the conference deliberations and identify converging and diverging areas. The Compass findings will inform, of course, future research globally, but also specifically our own project activities. And by building on the issues and priorities identified by the states themselves, activities that are based on the Compass's findings will be in line with the actual needs of states and the process, and will therefore receive, hopefully, much needed buy-in and yielding impactful outcomes. Now, once again, let me seize this opportunity to express our gratitude to the EU for their strong financial support of this project. And with this, I'm very much looking forward to our deliberations here today and to sharing this new online tool with you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. Before I do give the floor to Ambassador Klement, I do want to thank again the EU, and especially in the situation where the Middle East is today. We are aware that countries and foundations, as well as other organizations, are very reluctant to advance and invest in the Middle East. And I think the fact that the EU has been investing for almost 5 years in such a project really demonstrate the unwavering support of the EU on the Middle East weapon of mass destruction free zone idea and initiative, and we really want to thank you for that. So with that, Ambassador Klement, the floor is yours.
Chen, and thank you very much, of course, UNIDIR for carrying out this project, which we are very happy to carry out with, together with UNIDIR. And as you rightly said already at the start, you basically preempted what I was going to say. The non-proliferation disarmament, of course, including the situation in the Middle East, is a very strong priority for the European Union. And this is why for a long time we have been looking at the issue of the WMD-Free zone in the Middle East and trying to support, even in circumstances, as you mentioned, which are not always the most constructive ones as we see at the moment. But I think it's important to keep the momentum. And this project and the long-time cooperation with UNIDIR has always proven to be very, how to say, helpful and useful in producing some tangible results and some concrete products, or at least the tools which allow to carry out further work, further deliberation on the zone, even if we are not naive and politically, of course, the situation at the moment does not look very promising about the realization of this goal in the immediate future. And just to mention also that why UNIDIR, because we see also that in the context of the implementation of this project, we have a very inclusive approach in terms of participation of experts and expertise which is being provided. And of course, needless to say that the WMD-Free zone is not a goal in itself. It's to stabilize the situation in the Middle East, and it's definitely one of the longer-term elements which will contribute to this. From an EU angle, as you very well know, multilateralism and the strengthening of international convention, be it in the nuclear field, NPT, but also chemical weapons convention, biology, this is one of our top priorities. And we also believe, of course, work on the zone contributes to this element. As I said, the situation at the moment is not the most conducive one, but these tools which are being developed, and Robin already, thank you very much for your comments. He mentioned the compass, and the compass is definitely something which has a very important functions, and we will later on get a presentation from my colleague here. It allows, on the one hand, of course, to understand the current situation, and a solution often is always based on, first of all, understanding the situation and then building on this, and the compass will facilitate this exercise. And it has also, I would believe, and I hope it will be the case, a very important educational aspect. And we have been hearing that, of course, the idea of the zone is a long-standing one. Ideas survive, but not always diplomats survive for more than a certain number of decades. And it's absolutely necessary to preserve this knowledge and to move it forward to future generations. And here also, I'm sure the compass can contribute to this situation. And maybe last but not least, I would say by working on the issue of the WMD-Free zone in the Middle East, I think it's kind of a very important breeding ground where people come together, speak about this issue, and prepare the seeds for future, maybe more concrete diplomatic negotiations. And with this, maybe I don't want to be long because everybody's waiting for the presentation of the compass, I'm pretty sure, which has been promoted now so much. Of course, we will continue to do this work with UNIDIR, and for sure there are many other good practical ideas which can be realized in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stephan. Before we turn to hear about the compass from Almuntaser, I would like to follow up on some of the explanation with both Robin and Stephan to explain about the criteria, how we decided to include and what is included in it or not. So first, the tool itself covers statements made by the 22 Arab League countries, Iran and Israel, as well as other regional organizations, for example, the Arab League, as well as the GCC, as representative of groups from the Middle East, and the 5 nuclear weapon states, as they are expected also to be part of the zone as signatories of the protocols. The tool outlines issues, proposals, concerns publicly expressed in relevant multilateral fora by regional states as well as the nuclear weapon states related to the zone, mostly since the inception of the conference on the establishment of the Middle East free of nuclear weapons and other weapon of mass destruction free zone, other weapon of mass destruction in 2019. But some of the statement are traced back a little bit further. The compass topics as well as subtopics represent the various elements of the future zone treaty, as well as the different negotiation phase, the pre-negotiation, the negotiation, and the implementation. And the tools includes only publicly available statements. So as I turn really the floor to Almuntaser, I must acknowledge also that Almuntaser is the visionary behind this tool. With his support of the conference deliberation as well, this is some of the gaps that we identified that can be useful for negotiators in the room. And he really managed to work on it, really poured his heart and soul into it in the development and overcoming both political as well as some technical challenges to bring it to life. So with that, Almuntaser, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chen. Good afternoon. It's indeed a great pleasure for me to join you today in launching the Compass, a result of almost 8 months' work, which wouldn't be happen without the generous funding from the EU, the continuous support of the friends of the project, and of course the dedication of the project team, to whom all I'm grateful. So the Compass makes statements searchable by country, by year, by topic, and also gives the user the possibility to compare between states through the topics and the statements. In this demonstration, I'm going to show you how this works, along with other valuable features that the Compass offers. Let's start by sharing my screen and entering the Compass website, which you can do that by either entering the URL compass.unidir.org or by scanning the barcode in front of you on the table. So the first message the user sees when entering the Compass is a brief description and a disclaimer about what Compass is and what Compass is not. The full disclaimers and more information about the methodology used to develop the Compass can be found here by pressing at this hyperlink, which leads to the full page. Now, after clicking on I understand, this is the landing and the homepage of Compass, the tool. Before going through the main features, I would like just quickly show you the topics under which the statements available on Compass are characterized and presented. So if we go here to topics, you can see a list of almost 55 topics and subtopics. Those are related to the elements of the pre-negotiations, the negotiations, and the implementation of the future treaty. You can notice that there are subtopics under some of the main topics, as well as definitions, which we think it would be useful for the users to understand the context in which, under which these statements are presented. Now, if we go back to the main page of Compass, I want to start by the first main feature, which is exploring the statements by state or by topic. And as you can see, we have here the map, which shows in blue the countries of the region, and in light gray the P5 as the observers and expected relevant actors in the future treaty. Now, to start viewing the statements, you can select a country from the map or through the list. Here you can see the list of the countries. I prepared examples from, here, for example, the United Arab Emirates. And if you click on the country, this gets you to what we call the country profile page. So here you can see the country with the statements listed under the topic. So if you select here, for example, scope, you can see the topics. The other way would be to filter the topics. So for example, if we want to show the relationship between the zone and the NPT as a topic, and then we can view the statements. So those are the core content of the compass, the statements themselves. As you can see, there are more details about these statements, the original language for those statements, the year, and the source, which is the original document where we cite those statements. So if you click, for example, on the source, it leads you to another tool for the project, which is the documents depository, and you can view the original document in the original language, but we also offer a brief in English, in English language. So just very quickly showing you the original document. Now, going back to the statement, we also have the option to translate the statement into different UN languages and regional languages. Now, this is, I must say, a Google Translate. So just for demonstration, I'm just going to select Arabic, and you can see here how this changed. Now, the other feature which we think the compass offers and can be valuable for researchers and negotiators is tracking the continuation, tracking and evaluating the depth of deliberations, whether it's a change or continuation on certain statements. So that can be done by basically examining the statements through the year under a specific topic. So if we take, for example, the nuclear safeguards and IAEA for the UAE, by looking at the statements through the years, you can notice, for example, the continuation of making references to the importance of the IAEA CSA. And we think this could be useful for the users. Now, just very briefly, there are options here where for exporting the data, for sharing the data, for suggesting an update for those statements or improvements or suggestions for the project. There's also the option to go to the depository, the document depository that I just showed you, and expand all the statements under the topics just to, if the user wants to skim through the data. Now, that was showing data statements by country. The other option is through topics. So if we go under browse here, we can check the list of the topics and select a topic that we want to see all the statements available under that topic. So I want to, for example, show you relevant treaties and agreements to the future zone treaty. You can see in this page all statements available on the compass for all countries. So if we expand all, you can skim through the statements here. Now, going to the second main feature of Compass, which is comparison. The Compass allows for comparing between organizations. We have relevant organizations like the GCC and the League of Arab States, and you also can compare statements between states. I'm going to do some examples for states. So if we take Egypt, for example, and Iran, as you can see here, you have counts for statements available under each topic, which allows the user to have to narrow the comparison. But there's also the option to filter. So I'm going to take, for example, entry into force topic. If you click on the topic or anywhere across this row, you can see the statements and compare between the two countries. Again, you have the same options as in the country profile through all the statements. You can also add another third state. So, for example, if we add Israel here, you can do a comparison between 3 states. Again, you have the filter option. Here, if we look at, for example, rules of procedure, you can compare across the 3 countries, the statements of the 3 countries. I'm going to do one last maybe example here for comparison, because we think it's very important feature. So if we do something for the P5, I'll take China, the Russian Federation, and the United States of America. It's also the same. You select a topic and you can see the statements between the countries. Now, the third and the last feature is searching. So very simple search. If you're interested in certain key word or technical or legal element, you can easily just write it down here. And if it's available in any of the statements, it's going to show up. So for example, I'm going to write verification. As you can see, it shows you where this keyword appears in the statements, and you can see all the available statements for all countries here. Again, I'm not gonna keep scrolling, but you get the same options for the statements and the filtering as well. I'm gonna stop here and just say, I think we're confident that the compass is only as useful and valuable as the extent to which states engage with and contribute to and support. So it was developed in a way, the compass was developed in a way to invite users to actually provide suggestions and updates. So we invite you all to explore the compass further, and we hope that we can hear from you more updates and suggestions. And I'll leave it here. Thank you.
Thank you, Almuntaser. And with that, we will, the 2 people that had many hours on their belt dealing with the Middle East weapon of mass destruction free zone in various multilateral fora. So with that, Counsellor Elghitany, the floor is yours.
Are you ready to be here for the next 10 hours? Well, it's a pleasure, Chen, to be here among this distinguished panelists. All friends working together for almost the last 3 decades in that. Ambassador Scheinman, we met first in 2010 in the last successful review conference, and we worked very closely in proceeding forward on many aspects, including the language on the Middle East in 2010. We still remember those informals we had in our mission. We worked very closely in 22. And we were also successful in landing on a very solid basis for the way forward in this regard, taking into considerations a lot of developments that has been taking place over that. I will try to be kind of organized in my thoughts. It's a bit challenging since we're here for the compass, but as an Egyptian diplomat, it's very hard to not to take advantage of the chance and to reflect on many of the national views and perspectives on that regard. First, with regard to the project, which is the main theme of our meeting today, very abstract evaluation. It is a useful decision-making tool. And I can see a lot of work and investment that has been done in order to find a second generation of information management that is useful in bridging some institutional gaps in retrieving certain aspects in deeper research. And the problem with and the challenge in dealing with the issue of the Middle East that has been spanned over almost half a century. The process has started in 1974. And it extended in multidimensional and in multi-fora. It has been in the GA, and then it's in the IEA, EA. We have the annual resolution in the General Assembly. You have also the General IAEA General Conference resolution since 1980. And then you have the NPT process. And then you have the practitioners who are playing among all this, and they are also belong to several generations. So for us who used to be the juniors, now in the middle rank, now we have 12 years to retirement. I can see my boss sitting over there in the room, and he's our new ambassador to Tunisia. We need to congratulate him on that. But I have seen the succession of generations getting into the top. And part of the challenge is to educate those new entries into this domain with what happened to the past. Where did this position came from? What are the red lines, and how to ensure the continuity and the accumulation of process in order to avoid any structural gaps within the negotiation process. And I believe that this project will definitely help. Maybe as a government official, I will always take with a grain of salt how our views are reflected. This is what I will tell to my colleagues when they read. But certainly I would also ask them to have a look when we need to inspect something. How we can take advantage of this well-organized information. My final point is here, this is a living process. And this is the challenge for success for this project. You have a decent start, but this is not the end of the process. You need to invest heavily in ensuring, improving the precision of how the views are reflected, and then ensure continuity, because you don't want to spike in this project where you have a good investment in providing this information, and then in 2 years gap, it disappears. So it will belong to one of the many tens of sites we have on the internet that used to be useful, and they are not that anymore. Having said that, now I'll switch to our favorite topic. And I think it's a good opportunity to have a frank, candid discussion away from the meeting room tightness, how the process of the Middle East has been evolving over the last 20 years. I mean, the challenge of the process, as I mentioned before, it's a multidimensional. Egypt has relentlessly pursued this objective since 1974, the year the agenda item was first introduced in the General Assembly. Since 1980, the resolution has been adopted by consensus in the General Assembly all the way until 2018. And even today, the consensus is almost there, with -2 states are not joining it. We hope that we get back to this consensus. It sends a very universal message about the urgent need for this. Similarly, on a different venue, this goal were clearly reflected in the IAEA, where the annual resolution on the application of the agency safeguards in the Middle East has been tabled since 1980. This is with regard to the General Assembly, FirstCom, and the IAEA. But the critical point and the basis for the discussion took a very sharp shift in 1995. 1995 were a unique year for the whole regime of nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation in the NPT. The original text of the NPT in 1970 that were adopted decided that in 25 years we have to review the legal status of the treaty and how it should be extended. Should be extended temporarily, indefinitely, or not extended at all. And we had a very long discussion in 1995 to the extent there were some risks that the conclusion were not easy to arrive. Then the solution came when a package were adopted. And in the very core package that had legal reflections were the adoption of the 1995 resolution. Very basically, this treaty wouldn't have been indefinitely extended unless the 1995 resolution in the Middle East were adopted. And in the outcome package of 1995, it is the only outcome that were labeled as adopted as a resolution. The indefinite extension were adopted as a decision. We had 3 decisions and the resolution in the Middle East. In this package, the Middle East is the bedrock for this extension. Decision 2 also addressed the universality of the treaty, which is a virtue that we need to pursue very extensively in the current state of global affairs. In 2000, where also the successful review conference reiterated the same position, the need for implementation for the 1995 resolution, which was the cornerstone of the indefinite extension package. Unfortunately, until 2010, we didn't have anything positive on this regard. 2010 adopted the action plan, the 60 actions on the 3 pillars, and an independent action plan on the Middle East that recalled for the convening of the 2012 conference. Another unfortunate incident that the 2012 conference did not materialize in a process that has been extended, and there arose a need to find an implementation vehicle for this process. Here comes the value for the 2018 decision adopted by the General Assembly 73/546 in this regard, that established a very clear implementation path for the 1995 resolution, taking two important points into consideration. One, the terms of reference for the conference are the resolution on the Middle East that should and must remain valid until its full implementation. Second, the modalities of operation, which based on the 1999 guidelines adopted by the UNDC, which states very clearly that any arrangement should be freely arrived at by the free will of the states of the region. The whole process of the Middle East Conference under the United Nations that has successfully convened 4 sessions is sending a very important message. One, it has no preconditions, and this is clearly depicted in its mandate. It's unconditional process that provides a platform that clearly operates by consensus, the consensus that is stated in both the decision that established the process and its rules of procedure that were adopted successfully in the 2nd session in November 2021. Third, it's the stage and the platform of the conference posed by the conference are willing to discuss and engage all the concerns by all states of the region. And I stress on all states of the region because the value of this process only earns its impactfulness and its impact from having everyone on board. There is an open invitation in this regard to all states of the region, including Israel, to join. Unfortunately, all the states has been participating actively in the last 4 successful sessions, except Israel. So far, they haven't joined. We look forward for Israel to join this. This is extremely important since there is no precondition in this regard. It works by consensus. And there is an urgent need to address the question of having this zone in the Middle East, is particularly at the moment when we hear a nuclear discourse threatening the use of nuclear weapons in a regional conflict. Maybe these are the 2 points that uniquely characterizes the process of the conference. And it was quite important when we addressed this there is a question also, what is the link between this and the whole review process of the NPT? And the very simple question is, terms of reference is the 1995 resolution. The review conference monitors and takes into consideration the progress made towards the implementation of the 1995 resolution that remains valid until its full implementation. We had 4 successful sessions convened. All states of the region but 1 has participated. 4 of the nuclear weapon states have participated in the sessions. We look forward for the 1 state that they're to join. We believe that it's important for, very frankly, for the United States to join, since for many aspects. First, the United States is one of the 3 depositories of the NPT. It's one of the 3 co-sponsors of 1995 resolution. We believe that this will be reflecting and sending a very positive message towards this process that we look very hopefully as the efficient implementation vehicle that avoids any kind of precondition, any pre-connotations, any unjust or unfair approach towards any of the members. It is a really undiminished security for all oriented forum that provides an opportunity that must not be missed. This must not be missed, not only for the regional aspects, but also for the ramifications of the situation of the nuclear threat in the Middle East in absence of this zone. Having said that, Chen, I hope I have not spoken too much, but I will stop here, and I look forward for the feedback about this. Thank you.
Thank you both for the kind words on the project, the homework that you gave us to continue with regard to the tool, as well as the very clear both update about the zone process conference, as well as articulation of the Egyptian position. So with that, Adam, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much. Happy to join my friends on the panel. We've been working on these issues off and on, I think, and face-to-face for some time. So very delighted to join the panel and very much appreciate your work on this project and the efforts that UNIDIR has made to advance our collective understanding of these issues. I think it's a really important project, and what we saw just now through the Compass tool just proves that that there's more work to do, that I think we can find ways to narrow our differences by understanding what has been said in the past. And we may have an opportunity to come back and talk to this later, but I would note that some of the U.S. history on this issue is probably all on paper. If we go all the way back to the 1990s, it's on paper in a box somewhere in the basement of the State Department. So by digitalizing all of this information and putting it at our fingertips, I think that itself could help narrow some of the gaps. So as I said last year during the same kind of side event, also hosted by UNIDIR, and it's something I think holds true today, the output that you've generated really continues to exceed expectations. And so, again, I do want to thank you for walking us through the Compass tool, and we'll come back to that perhaps in the Q&A. But turning to the broader zone-related issues, I'd like to use this opportunity to reiterate our perspective on efforts to advance a zone, perspective that might differ just slightly from what my colleague has just advanced, including with respect to the UN conference that we've been periodically invited to attend. We have been very consistent in our commitment to work with all regional states to advance the goal of a Middle East free of WMD and delivery systems consistent with the 1995 resolution. We have been quite consistent in our view that the only practical path to achieving such a zone is through cooperation and inclusive dialogue on the basis of consensus, arrangements freely arrived at by all regional states and consistent with the principles for such zones as Mohamed had laid out. We have been equally consistent in our view that regional consensus, mutual consent, inclusive participation are essential at every stage of the process in negotiating such a complex zone, and not simply in the ultimate conclusion of a zone treaty. We've been consistent in our view that achievement of a zone is possible only in connection with the interests of all states in the region, but also recognizing that this is a long-term undertaking, realistically, and not one that can be advanced in over the next few years. And I think most in this room know that we did not support the 2018 UN General Assembly decision that tasked the UN Secretary General with convening a conference over the explicit objection of Israel, who, in our view, its positions and interests were not taken into account in the development of the resolution. In some ways, this was, to our mind, a replay of the 2015 experience, where the process to prepare for a regional conference was essentially shut down in 2014 because we didn't have agreement on the basics, just the basics of a conference with respect to the contents of the agenda and the procedures by which it would operate. Then we got to the 2015 review conference, and a set of ideas was, of course, laid down that overrode the differences, and we were not prepared to support a process that didn't meet our longstanding positions. And for better or worse, our view is that the 2018 resolution was in effect a recasting of the 2015 proposal that we were not prepared to support. And really, it's for that reason that we have opted not to attend the 4 sessions of the UN conference. It remains our perspective that inclusion and the requirement that arrangements be freely arrived at do not mean merely inviting all parties to attend, but rather allow them to have a genuine stake in the process, which means all of the relevant issues need to be brought to the table. And though not present, the United States, of course, follows the developments of the UN conference with interest. We hear from our colleagues in the region quite often about how the process is moving, and we're delighted to receive those reports. We've encouraged governments to engage directly with Israel in this process. It's not sufficient to ask the United States to come to the meeting and to compel Israel to join along. I think this is a matter of the regional states to address. You should take your points and your interest in having Israel participate to Israel. And I think if you did, you might find a pathway to identify more mutually agreeable solutions as we look ahead on this issue. We're certainly willing to lend our support for discussions, but any decision on next steps is, as I say, a matter to be decided by all regional states. And we have been equally clear that we'd be prepared to support proposals that all regional states can accept. So I hope and believe that despite our differences on this issue, that a majority of regional states and the majority of NPT parties would not want this issue to once again become an obstacle to consensus in the NPT review cycle. We were quite pleased with the engagement with NPT parties on the topic in 2022 at the review conference, and very much hope a similar approach and spirit of pragmatism prevails in this review cycle. I know we are given in multilateral fora like the NPT and UN First Committee to have a tendency to amplify our differences, but I think we should really not lose sight of what's actually happening on the ground in the region with regard to WMD and delivery systems. And in some ways, we see a region that is moving in the wrong direction. Certainly in terms of achieving a reliable zone. We know that Iran has expanded its nuclear activities in ways that seem to lack sufficient justification. We know that Syria has used chemical weapons numerous times per the conclusion of the OPCW. We know that unmanned vehicles and delivery systems are proliferating in the region at an unprecedented rate and may even be used to support Russia's war in Ukraine. So these are real issues, are real challenges, but I can assure you that we'll continue to invest our time and energy to build support, not just for the zone, but for all WMD-related risks in the region, which I think is more crucial now than ever before. So I'll stop there and look forward to the discussion.
Thank you, Ambassador Scheinman. And I must say that some of the topics that you mentioned now, actually, when you look on the compass and both on topics that countries have been raising are included in those. So they're really much in the mind and statements of countries in the region as concern. So we are reflecting both the traditional weapon of mass destruction concern position, and we mentioned use as well as the new progress of the region and where that put us in a proliferation path rather than the non-proliferation path. So with that, I will open the floor to any questions we will for our panelists. I see two, and I have at least one more from our online audience. So with that, please introduce yourself, ask your question, and if there is to a specific panelist, please point that as well. So Sharon, you will be first.
Thank you very much, Chen, and the UNIDIR team. I think for us, Disarmament geeks, Christmas, Eid al-Adha, Hanukkah came early with this compass. It's amazing tool, and I really am looking forward to go back home and to play with it. I want to say something to the two last speakers. First, the United States didn't support the 2018 decision, but the decision has passed. And if you forgive me for being maybe bringing some example from the maternal law world, a couple got pregnant, maybe the father didn't want to, okay? But the child is there. Maybe one of them didn't want to, it wasn't his decision, but now there's a child. The child is the November conference. The importance of the November conference is in its existence to begin with. So 23 Arab states and Iran are sitting in the room, reaching consensus for 4 years in a row. And this is not something to belittle. Now, even if you don't think that the November conference is important for some reason, just think of the November conference failing. What will that say to the Middle East? What will that say to the world? The United States, not this administration, of course, but the United States also already withdrew from one working agreement, the JCPOA, which put in danger all working agreements. Because if an agreement is not strong, and even though it's working, one party can just withdraw from it. And if it's the US, it means something. So I think that if we are looking at the Middle East, and even if we look at the special relations between the US and Israel, that's the most responsible thing to do would be to send someone to the November conference, especially when then the P5, they're not sitting in the middle, they're not even speaking, not much. But to have someone there will signal that this process needs to continue. And at the same time, I would like to ask, sorry, Mohamed, sorry, I can't see from here. And we know each other. I mean, I'm sorry. I didn't sleep tonight, so that's my excuse. But I mean, the Egyptian participation and the leading role since 1974 is so crucial. And I don't think that there's any other now ministry in the Middle East that has such capacity to push this forward. I wanted to ask you, why is it that you think that when at the NPT, Arab states are talking, they're not protecting also this conference and not talk about it when they talk about the 95 resolution? I think that this is something to be so proud of and protect, that it needs to be shown also in the statements. Thank you very much. And thank you for this very interesting panel.
Thank you, Sharon, for this question. I will not speak on behalf of Arab states. I will speak on myself. And Egypt is not leading only in 1974, but also in 1977 and 1979. So when I speak about regional security and peace, I know what I'm talking about, and I know where I'm coming from, and I claim that I have the eligibility to say what should be done in the right course. And out of this historic responsibility, we raise the issue. It's not the categorization where should be called the Conference on the Middle East or the 1995. The bedrock is the 1995. This is the cornerstone of the indefinite extension that should remain valid until its full implementation. The vehicles to implement, we have a very efficient vehicle. I'm quite happy that my dear friend Ambassador Scheinman raised his national concerns towards many of the issues that we see on a daily basis in the region at the moment. And I will respond very strongly that, okay, we need a platform to approach these concerns. And what better platform that states in its terms of reference, it works by consensus, that Israel should be there, and has to sit on the table with us. So now we are hearing a different tone for the historic story. It has been always the other side of the story, that Israel would like to sit at the table, the Arabs would not like to sit. Now the Arabs are on the table, Iran is on the table, but Israel is not willing to sit. And this drives me to the question of very important thing, which is the political will. Let's call things by their name. If you want to proceed to make peace and ensure equal and just security, and you must have a political will. And there are some players, they have role to play. This has very clear along over history when it comes to forging regional security arrangements like this one on the zone in the Middle East. The role being played, it has been very explicit in the leading peace treaty in the region, which is the Israeli-Egyptian peace treaty. Now we are in a much away from the current situation, but before in 2022 or in 2023, we had additional 4 peace treaties, bringing up the Arab states that have peace treaties with Israel up to 6. So if we were able to conclude the 1995 resolution when we have only 2 peace treaties between Israel, there is a very important regional development that you have a structured, legally binding peace treaties that brings the 6 Arab nations with Israel at the moment. So I think this should be enough to move forward along this part. If we are really willing to practice what we preach about peace. For Egypt, peace is the only way forward and what we should aspire for. And we believe for the right for the people in this region to strive. But I would invite anyone who would look with less concern to the situation in a region where there is a very explicit military nuclear capability by one side, and you have 23 countries are asking, please just sit to discuss. This is a very long process. It will not be between day and night. But it is important to join from the beginning in order to move forward. Otherwise, without the political will and without the engagement and we have a platform that is willing and it is running. And out of our historic responsibility, we feel sorry to waste an opportunity that we don't know how we can get something similar in the future. This is not only of concern to the Egyptians or to the Arabs or to the Israelis. It's also for Europe and for the whole world. And this is a platform that could contribute seriously to something that can materialize in this. But political will is a must.
Yeah, just perhaps a brief comment or two. Sharon, it's certainly not our position that this is not important. That's never a statement we have made or would make. We do consider, though, that this is unlikely to be achieved by pressure, by political resolutions passed in international bodies and so forth. There has to be a serious discussion and consideration by all states in the region on the requirements for achieving a zone. And the reality is a zone free of WMD in delivery systems is hugely complex. That's the reality. And it's a type of zone that has never been attempted or achieved anywhere in the world. And we're asking for it to be secured in, I think, the most complicated and complex region in the world. So I think we have to be realistic about how it might be pursued and how it might be achieved. For at least one state, as you know, it does not enjoy recognition by all other states in the region. At least one state has a stated national policy for the destruction of Israel. So I don't think it's a matter of coming into a room and trying to, resolve very substantial and strategic differences. It's going to have to be addressed directly to Israel, and not in rooms like this, in much smaller rooms, perhaps, drawing on the experience and the lessons of the Oslo process that didn't start with public summit meetings. It started with quiet discussions behind the scenes. And so I think if there is truly an interest in a breakthrough with respect to political will, that needs to be taken to Israel, and it needs to be done at a high level, and I think quite privately. That likely is the pathway. I don't think this is, simply a question of political will. I think it's a question of political and strategic conditions. And perhaps there's a chicken and an egg here. If the conditions exist, political will exist. But I don't believe the use of pressure and appeals through processes like the NPT, which by itself cannot solve the challenge of reaching a zone free of WMD and delivery systems. So I hope work will continue. As I said, we will be very supportive of efforts that enjoy the support of all states in the region.
I have 3 more questions from our online audience. So, Nuno, do you want to take your first question, and then I will read our questions from our audience, while if there are other people, and the Russian photo. We will have those 2 questions, and then I will read the questions also that we have from our online audience.
I apologize. It's not going to be more of it's going to be more of a comment than a question, since the IEA has been mentioned several times here. I think first of all, I would like to congratulate on behalf of the agency UNIDIR for this project. You have fostered substantive discussions. You have produced very useful and in-depth documents, and I think, as a European citizen, now I'm taking out my hat as IAEA official, I think it's very well spent EU money, if I may say so. Also, interesting choice of name for the tool, Compass. We have our own Compass at the IAEA. It's a comprehensive capacity building initiative that was launched in 2020 on safeguards. So perhaps it's a predicting coincidence. We shall see. I mean, as you know, but perhaps some of our colleagues here today, they are not aware, though, so I would like to just very briefly mention that obviously the IAEA involvement with this topic goes back to the 80s, with a very big highlight on the 2011 Forum on Existence of experiences of possible relevance to the creation of a zone in the Middle East, which was convened by the IAEA. We have actually participated in all 4 sessions as observers, and we have provided twice background documentation in depth describing the work previously done on other treaties and regional arrangements. And last week we have received already the invitation for the 5th session, and we plan to be there. Just for people also to be aware that we have participated in every intersessional meeting on topics, and this also gives a breadth of the topics that are being discussed, on topics such as the status of safeguards agreements and additional protocols in the region, but also a glossary to terminologies, existing global frameworks, arrangements for peaceful uses, arrangements for verification, and also regional arrangements. So we have always sent experts. This for us, obviously we are cognizant of the political situation on the ground, but for us this is a technical issue. We provide technical expertise to our member states and obviously to the states in the region. And we do, as it was mentioned, we do have a mandate given by the General Conference on a yearly resolution. On the messaging, which is also important, DG Grossi has underlined repeatedly the importance of early application of comprehensive agency safeguards on all nuclear activities in the region. He has also expressed our availability to contribute to this process, obviously always as appropriate and in line with the relevant IEA General Conference resolutions and those that can emanate from the Board of Governors. And he has called on all countries which are not party to the NPT to adhere to it. We all know the ramifications of this statement as well. So that's all from my side. And again, congratulations.
Thank you, as well, the kind words, as well as the IEA. And I will not disclose my age, but I might by saying it. My first ever conference, international conference, was in 1993 at the IEA on the lesson learned from other nuclear weapon-free zones relevant to the Middle East. So your work has been informing countries in the region for decades, and I think that's really invaluable contribution for the process and ideas in the region. Our colleagues from the Russian Federation, please.
First of all, of course, we want to say thank you to the owners of this event for the compass. We hope that it will help to learn positions of each other, including the consistent position of the Russian Federation. We were a co-sponsor of the relevant resolution of 1995. Since then, we've given vocal support to the idea, and we've contributed actually to it. We participated in all 4 conferences under UN auspices and see them as a good, actually complementary, but surely not replacing forum. We hope the missing 2 states will realize that participation in the conference will no way harm their interest, as all decisions at this UN conferences taken in consensus, already as said by previous speakers. Actually, maybe here I stop, and again, thank you so much.
So if there are any other questions from the audience, let me share those for our different panelists. So first is a question from Ambassador Khaled Chama. How can UNIDIR Middle East Weapon of Mass Destruction Free Zone project move from being an excellent academic project to become a facilitation tool for the establishment of the zone? What would your audience, that's I guess a question for us, as well as the wider audience, so I guess that's a question for you, will wish to see the project accomplish? Second question from another Egyptian colleague, Dina Taufik. There have been some tension between the Arab position versus the Israeli position in terms of what comes first, the zone or peace, as well as what role regional security plays in the zone discussions, if any. Is this changing in any way at the moment? I think this might be a question for you also, Almuntaser, in the sense of what you track within the compass. Will consideration of regional security be factored into discussion over the zone? So that might be also a question for Egyptian's colleague. Ambassador Nabila El-Moula, another distinguished member of our UNIDIR ABDM and Board of Trustees, ask, thank you for UNIDIR for launching the Compass project and the EU for its support to the project. To Al-Mutasar, will it include instruments such as the Convention on Nuclear Safety? And then another member of our reference group, Ambassador Tom Countryman, if 6 Arab countries have diplomatic relations with Israel, have the leaders of those countries singly or collectively ever reached out to the leader of Israel to encourage Israeli attendance at the conference? So with that, I will open it to our different panelists. Please pick up and choose whichever questions that you would like to address. Al-Mutasar, I will turn it first to you.
Thank you. Thank you for all these questions. I'll start with the question from Ambassador Nabila, and again, thanks for her support throughout the project. We currently have a subtopic under scope that track statements on safety and security, mostly nuclear and safety and security issues. And so far, I can say we've seen some statements from states highlighting the importance of whether first applying the international instruments in nuclear safety and security, or taking that further by exploring cooperation between the states of the region on these aspects. And also, just very briefly to weigh in the other question about the regional security. I guess this is what is great about Compass. You can just refer to the statements and disclaim any responsibility, any liability in what you can say in this. And if you go into our topic, regional security, we can see there's emphasis on the importance of addressing issues related to regional security. But it's also important to say that majorities of the states they acknowledge that this zone should be seen within the broader efforts towards more secure and peaceful region. And in that, I can't say there's a change or shift, but I would say I think there's more awareness about the importance of looking into these issues.
Ambassador Scheinman?
Well, starting from the last question, I swear to God, I was going to ask the very same question. Have the 6 states raised the issue with Israel at a very senior level? I think that would be important to know and to understand the context in which we're operating. So I can't answer that question, of course, but perhaps others in the room can. On the question about how the project can help move from informal, perhaps, discussions to agreed endpoints, I think that is a good question to ask, and it seems to me that the Compass tool can really be helpful, and for the reasons that you laid out at the front end, that the topics for which you're collecting comments from national states involved or may have an involvement includes not just the strict narrow categories of WMD, but also other issues relating to regional security. So I think you might be able to use that tool to help advance our understanding, our collective understanding of the issues in an interesting way, particularly if the tool can address both the conceptual issues, how states view the concepts relating to a zone, from vision to principles to end states and that sort of thing, but also the operational elements, which again could be narrowly construed as those elements that relate to WMD, but it might also relate to issues relating to crisis prevention and communication mechanisms, the variety of confidence building measures that we know would have to be in place, at least in our view, in order to secure a regional WMD-free zone. So I think I'll stop with that.
Let me start by sending my big regards to Ambassador Khaled. For those who don't know him, he's one of the Egyptian gurus in nuclear disarmament. He was one of the junior staff who worked with him from 2006 to 2010 in New York, and he were among those of the few who wrote himself and contributed to the text of the Middle East Action Plan. So the question, I think Adam has answered this very, very clearly. I wouldn't add. The second question is, which is about who should come first. We believe that the ultimate confidence building measure is the zone that should lead to further steps. I mean, if we to sit and discuss all of our concerns in absence of any condition and with the guarantee of consensus, this is how peace has been made. This is how we can move forward. And peace comes at a price. It's never been an easy task. It has never been growth through the park. It requires a lot of courage, political will, and decisiveness to move forward. And we believe that the conference and the zone is the right first step to proceed later on. The question by my dear friend Tom Countryman, I can see his philosophy going through this, but this is a very political question. As a country that has a peace treaty and a bilateral relations with Israel, we are not shy that we as diplomats discuss this with our Israeli counterparts. We raise this through them. We have the diplomatic official channels. We address this, and we don't seek a propaganda as much we seek results on the ground. And we are careful about having these results. But you need two to tango. In order to move forward, we say Israel must attend or should consider very seriously about attending the conference, but now the ball is on the Israeli side. Why the other way around is we don't see where is the Israeli responsibility in contributing to this. This is a question I think should be asked by Tom. How Israel is responding to that. Not speaking on behalf of everyone, but we believe that this is a wonderful opportunity that should not be missed. Thank you.
Thank you. And I will take the prerogative at least to try to address one or two questions that were answered. So with regard to at least well, obviously Israel is not in the room, at least if there is interest about the positions of either the US or Israel, they are reflected in the compass. So at least I think in the sense of understanding what countries that not necessarily in the room are thinking about specific topics, they are reflected in the compass, and that's one of the reasons that we thought it can be useful. And obviously that's not a replacement, but that's another source of information and knowledge. The other part with regard to Ambassador Shalma's question about how we can actually contribute rather than the academic part, but also the practical parts, I would say that we are not in the business of telling countries in the region what they should do. We don't give them directions. We don't give them prescription. What we do give them is options. We are laying the ground of the various options that exist, the plus and minuses, risk and opportunities in each one of them. So when they are making decisions based on their own national interest, it's an informed decision. And we really believe that at the end of the day, it's the responsibilities of countries in the region to negotiate a treaty or to agree on a treaty. And what we want to bring is the knowledge and the informed decisions how to do that. So with that, I think we actually got exactly to the point of our finishing of the session. So please join me in thanking our distinguished panelists, and thank you all for joining us.